Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tait Talks podcast, episode 34. Today I have the wonderful Ant Meczes. That's how you correctly say it?
You said it well. Very good.
Yes.
It could have been Mezes, Moses, Meczes, Menzes,
But we got it.
Meczes.
Meczes.
You said Meczes, and
Yes.
that is correct.
You are the head of science at a high school.
Correct.
You are an Englishman in Australia.
By trade.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also a budding comic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we met probably 4 months ago, something like that, I guess. Or probably maybe even a little less. At a few gigs around town in Perth. And I've got to know you a bit better and found out that you were in fact a school teacher. You've been doing that from, was it
1994.
94. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say 84 and I was like, no, I don't think
So
that's
before the time that your last guest was born.
Yes. Yes. I was 4 then and he didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Will. When did you move to Australia?
I moved here on September the 4th, 2007, which was the day that all the schools went back in the UK.
Yeah.
So I wanted to fly out knowing that they were going back to work.
Yeah.
And sending them texts. And they used language which didn't seem like English to me.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe French.
Yeah. A lot of French.
Maybe a bit of German in there.
Yeah.
But it was quite amusing.
Yeah. So what made you actually move to Australia?
I've always wanted to live in Australia. It was something, it's funny, as a young kid, maybe it was because of watching Neighbours, but you'd hope not, right? You'd hope not. Definitely not Home and Away, but because that wasn't there on then. But it was a country. It's funny. I lived in London, and I thought I want to go to Brighton. So I did studied in Brighton, which is the south coast of England. Then I moved to Newcastle, which was somewhere else I wanted to live, and started my teaching career there, and spent 13 years there. And then I moved with my family, who I met my wife up there. My children were born in Newcastle, so they're Geordies.
Really?
As we call them.
Geordie Shores, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just like that, they are completely like that. You know, they go out just in very short clothes, and that's in winter. And then we moved to Australia, and I remember saying to my school, I'll give you 2 years, and then I'm heading off to Australia, because you had to get in, for me, because of the point system, I had to be in before I was 35. Yeah. But I'd done I always look these things up, and there was this program where we could go to Australia and visit and do 2 weeks. And so I organised a trip to Australia. The money was flowing at that time. Yeah. And so we came out and did 2 weeks, and I thought to myself, 2 years time, I'll be living here. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And they never looked back, obviously, or?
No, I think, family, there's always things you miss about certain places that you're from. Yep. Interestingly, the first thing I miss, which probably shows you how ingrained these things are in the Englishman, is I missed a show called Match of the Day, which is a soccer
recap, is it?
Show. It's like the show on in the evening.
Yeah.
It's a soccer show, and you're like, man, I can't believe I am missing this. I'm not going to say that I missed that before my family. I did. Yeah. No, but I'm not going to say that I missed that before my family. And there was another show that I used to like called Have I Got News For You, which is probably a better version of than the Newsweek. You had, what was it? The Good News Week, was it here? You had a show that used to be on. I can't remember. Anyway,
ages ago. Yeah.
But it was it's a satirical news quiz, and it's I find it very funny. You can find it on YouTube, which has been my salvation on those things.
Most of the UK panel shows are quite good.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah, let's not expand that to all of them, but most of them are. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Sean Locke. 10 Cats.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Pretty sad.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Not brilliant that he died, but brilliant show. Just to clarify.
Yeah. Brilliant question.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's all right. So you only missed that, but was there any culture shocks? Like when you first came over, were you anything you were bemused by, and you were like, "What is this?" or "Why do they do that?"
I think it's you expect, because you speak the same language, everything to be the same, and it's not. Basically, I think so. There are certain attitudes towards things. But there's also certain words like we would call it, we're going to have a pudding.
Yep.
So what's a pudding? Is that a type of dessert?
Yeah.
Yep.
It is dessert.
Interchangeable word for us. Yeah.
Yes.
But a pudding is like a specific type of dessert over here.
Yes.
And those sort of things. But I used to find things really funny, like road signs that say "go back wrong way," and I thought, I love that. It's so direct. we wouldn't have that. You got to try and work out what the signs mean in the UK. Let's not make them too easy.
Yeah.
That would be too obvious for people.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, and it's funny. Actually, getting a bank account over here was quite hard when I started.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you had to demonstrate that you had good credit, and then you're like, well, I have got good credit, and I'm not from here. And it was only because I met a bank manager at the gym, and he went, oh yeah, I'll sort that out for you. And then it's like, oh, brilliant. And all of a sudden, it's who you know.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. Yeah,
that's crazy. But so I suppose, how old were your children when you first came over?
5 and 1.
Okay, yeah. So they clearly would both have Australian accents, wouldn't they?
Yeah, so Holly had a very strong Geordie accent. She'd go, I don't even know what do you mean like that? Stuff like that, because Luke obviously wasn't talking by that point. True. And I've changed their names just for the sake of this podcast. I haven't at all, which was really great. Yeah. But Holly, I remember her saying, starting to try and learn Australian, as she called it, because she wants. All right, mate. I want to fit in, she said, because people kept asking her to talk.
Yeah, because she sounded.
They kept asking me to shut up, but they kept asking her to talk. So, but she just wanted to fit in, so she adapted her accent, and she's got an Australian accent. Yeah, for sure.
Was that one of the main factors, I guess, for you? Obviously, as you said, you enjoyed in Australia, but your kids growing up here and pretty much knowing only Australia now.
Yeah.
So the idea of actually going back to the UK was...
It's interesting. I think Holly would like to go and live there again. Luke would like to go and live in America. I'm trying to help him with that.
Yeah.
But,
I want to live there too. So
yeah.
Once you figure it out for him, help me out.
Yeah. Well, I think he's really more interested in directing, and he's interested in that kind of thing. So probably more behind the camera than in front of a camera. Yeah. But he just when we went on holiday 2 years ago and we did a trip around the world, he just loves Venice Beach and that whole area. He just I thought, LA, you'd want to live in LA. It's like busy as. Why would, like New York, I kind of get. I love New York myself. But LA, anyway, he's
nice weather though.
That. Sorry?
Nice weather in LA.
Yeah. But I mean,
just the roads are fucking ridiculous.
Are the beaches better here? Maybe.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. I was only in Venice Beach like in 2019.
Yeah,
well, but it was.
We probably should have bumped into each other. Just didn't know that you were there.
Yeah.
Maybe you were that person on the beach that I threw $5 to. I don't know. Was that you?
I do remember that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
And now look, it's done a full circle, and you're on the podcast. Yeah. So essentially, you bought your way onto the podcast.
That's how that works. Yeah, that's it.
We'll go into school teacher stuff because we have a bit to talk about. You started doing school teaching 94, did you say?
That's right.
Yeah.
September 94. Yeah.
In England?
Yep. In Newcastle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? So how old were you when you started you started being a teacher? 22. Which is crazy to think. Like, that's such a young person to be teaching children. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, as a 22-year-old, I didn't know shit. And you are teaching children stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did know stuff, so...
Yeah, but not life.
No, I know nothing about life.
You knew things about
I only
books.
had to know about biology. I didn't have to know about other stuff and chemistry and some physics. But in that way, though, like, because children are inquisitive and they will ask questions about anything and everything that's not under your umbrella of biology. Yeah. And you're like, how do I answer this? Yeah. But it's a different time, too, because back then you could probably be more blunt or... yell at people or whatever it may be. Like, I want to do the difference of when you first started teaching until 2021. Yeah. There is a big difference.
Yeah. So let's
in many ways.
Like, so what do you think would be some of the biggest?
I think the first thing to say is that I think when you're young, you do think you know everything. A lot. So your confidence probably a kind way of saying it. Arrogant is probably a more accurate way of saying it. And so you think you're a lot, I'm very smart,
yes.
But you actually aren't. And I mean, I worked hard. I would spend a lot of time preparing. But yeah, I things do change. And so even you've got to think very carefully about how you say things now
yes.
more so than you did then. I mean, not that you didn't then. I remember, and again, it's just the difference in language between the south and the north of England. So I called this kid out of a classroom. I called him, and what I thought was just in effect saying a twit. Turned out it wasn't the word twit. And I said,
twat?
Yeah, I did. And I went into the staff room and went, that kid's face was shocking. What? And they said, what did you say? And I told them, I said, you can't say that to a kid. I was like, I didn't know. And he was like, because I said, you're acting like a right twat. And this kid just went, okay. He was like, he took it. He was like, I agree. And I was like,
you called me out on it.
Yeah, I called you out on it. But I mean, that's the other thing. You pull kids out of. But I guess I used comedy quite a lot as a teacher as well when I was. So I remember once, and I went into a classroom, and it'd been raining. It was this year 9 class, and the classroom stank. And I just saw this kid, and I just went, "You boy, out!" And he went, "Oh!" And he stood outside. I said, "Mate, you've done nothing wrong." I said, "But it stinks in there. Do you mind if we just stand out here for a while?" And he went, "Yeah, that's cool." So it's just like, yeah, we'll just stay out here.
It's so confused for a kid to be like, I don't know what's happening.
No, but we'll just stay out here. And I do things like all sorts of fun things, because it was good. This one kid, he'd hidden in the cupboard.
Yeah.
I knew he was in there. So I got the rest of the class, I told him to be quiet, and we took him outside. And then I banged on the classroom door. He came out. He goes, "Where's the class gone?" And I'd hidden them all in another cupboard. Right, and then I got him all to go off and look for them. And of course, then he'd missed the whole class. So it was just, "All right, you're on detention. You missed my class." And there's just stuff like that. And then I got on a bus once. And we used to have these buses that belonged to the school, or chartered by the school, or whatever you call it. And so I got on this bus, and I said to this kid, "Oh, you're not going anywhere. You haven't done this work. Get off." So I started hard, because you had this thing that you don't smile till Christmas. We'd start in September to Christmas in the UK, so you'd have 3 terms. So I'd start hard and go, "Right, no, you." And I'd chase up everything, literally everything, just to stop them thinking, "Oh, flipping out, don't mess with Meczes, he's hard."
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then so this kid.
So you're a teacher I would have hated.
Yeah, I think I hated myself.
Yeah.
But then I had a prac student. And the student, I told him the story about getting a kid off a bus, and he went on a public bus, and I didn't know this until the next day. He said to a kid, you need to get off this bus. And the kid went, "No, I'm not getting off." And he said, "Oh, right, there'll be trouble with Mr. Meczes tomorrow." So the kid got off. I said, Did you say you got him off a public bus?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Did the bus driver let you on?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, I said, "I'm a teacher." So who knew that the teacher had a qualification that could allow them to just walk onto a bus and get a kid up? I said, "The buses were actually part of the school service." And he went, "Oh." He'd just gone onto a random bus and grabbed this kid up. I was like, fair play. That's impressive. Very impressive. So I guess you could be more. Yeah, I think you could just be a bit more direct in those days. I mean, we used to give kids lines. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that now.
Cocaine?
Lines of cocaine. Yeah, and we'd say, I must not smoke this cocaine this way.
Yeah.
And you get them to write that 100 times.
Yeah. Different lines.
But I got to a point where I actually got them to do the alphabet in graph paper. Right, and the graph paper or graph paper, however you say it. We say graph paper, but up in Newcastle, I get graph paper, man. Yeah. And then I'd get them to write the alphabet in the graph paper of each box of the graph paper, and then they'd start again. And I got this one kid to do it on both sides. I think I ruined that kid. Yeah. I mean,
carpal tunnel.
7 hours. 7 hours of that detention. I kept getting it because he just annoyed me so much. And I made him do this detention every time. I said, "Right, you're just with me break time, lunchtime, after school."
Jesus.
And looking back, I think I wouldn't do that now. And
you probably couldn't, could you?
Well, I don't think you couldn't do it now, and 2,
kids don't know the alphabet.
If I'd looked at myself in the mirror, that's they only know certain letters of the alphabet, as we said earlier. I think I'd look myself in the mirror and go, "What are you doing, you evil man? That's not good for the kid's psychology or anything." So.
Yeah, true.
We know a lot more now. I mean, there's every condition, and sometimes they would come up with a condition for a kid, and I'd go, and I wouldn't tolerate those things. And like they go, they've got ADHD, and they go, like obviously that. But there'd be other ones that come, and they come up with names, and they go, "Oh, they've got this thing called ODD," and I go, "Yeah, they're just an odd child."
Yeah.
And I said, "I think they've got BAD.
Yeah.
They're just behaving badly." And I said, "I'm not going to, because," and they would do all right in my classes because I didn't want to make excuses for the conditions they had, which probably made it look like I didn't care. Yeah, but I did care. I just felt that they could succeed, and very often many of those kids did. But I think I'd never do anything like that now. It was too hard. It was too hard hitting. Yeah. And shouting at kids was just it was a given. Yeah. You just shout at kids. You just go, right, and just shout, get out, and I've got a loud voice, so I could do it. Voice, I could do that very effectively. I'd say to a kid, look, not only are you going to hear this, but everybody in the school is going to hear me having a go at you. Yeah. And I don't think that's very good. Looking back, that was terrible.
Yeah, I can't remember getting myself yelled at too much.
Yeah.
I always got the quiet word.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, can you stay back after class? And I'll be like, here we fucking go.
Yeah.
And I would just be like, listen, you're capable of the work, stop being lazy. That was the go-to. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm not. Just let me be an idiot, and that's fine, But you were saying, actually, go back. You have 2 children. You obviously worked in the UK.
Yep.
Do you think that they would get the same education, or better or worse, in the UK, or is it too hard to say?
It's a great question. I think it's difficult to say. I think there are real positives of the English education system. I actually think the waste. I was talking to actually last night. One of my former students, she gave me a lift back home after I watched her dad do this Toastmaster competition. Okay. And I lost my train of thought there. So, I was saying how brutal Year 12 is here. Yeah. Because they just have assessments all the time, and they count. Whereas in the UK, everything's practice until you do your final exam. Okay. So if you're not traveling well, you can kind of, it's okay. You can get through that. I mean, we're getting better at it. There's a lot of mental health well-being now in the schools, but I just think it can't be good for a kid in Year 12 to be going through assessment after assessment after assessment all the time. Where's the enjoyment of enjoying the subject? Yeah, okay. So I think there was more room to enjoy the subject, and we'd write tests, obviously, to check their understanding of the material in the UK, but they weren't assessed on it. Now, some would argue, well, with 50% of the school-based mark going in Australia, or certainly in Western Australia, going towards their final mark, they can work towards that. That could probably get them over the line. I've found, I suppose, in my context, that kids tend to do better in that final exam anyway, because they have more time to prepare for it. You spent most of the year, or most of the last Year 11 and Year 12, preparing them for that. Yeah. In the UK, I think the rigour, I don't think it may not be the same now. I think the rigour in Australia is pretty good now, but the rigour at the time was more rigorous in terms of the content at the time. There's a lot of research-based work that goes into assessing what an assessment looks like in the UK. Yep. So they call this thing assessment for learning, and I think we're moving more that way over here. But there's, like any system, there's pluses and minuses. So whether my kids would have done better in the education system over there or over here is difficult to say, really. Yeah. I think there are things they would have done better on and would have been good, and there's things that are better over here that they're doing. So yeah, it's a great question, but it's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, it's hard to probably quantify it into certain.
Yeah.
Do you think? I know this is just off the cuff, but do you think better weather has any, I've lived in the UK. It rained all the fucking time.
Yep.
It was.
We only ask if the rain is cold or warm today.
Yeah. It was dreary. It was quite. But it's probably something you're just used to, and that's what it is. But do you reckon that would have any type of bearing on students being happier?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a syndrome called again, I think it's called sad syndrome, isn't it? And I thought, well, sure. I think British people are just sad anyway, aren't we? We are. We just like to be miserable, and we love to talk about the weather.
You do.
But I think the weather, I mean, I remember you'd go like a month and you wouldn't see the sun, and you think, flipping heck, is the sun even there? I think it does depress people. I know I don't want to use the word depression too flippantly, because I appreciate there is clinical depression and so on, but I do think it has an impact on people's moods if you're not seeing good weather. I mean, we complain over here when it's like 40 degrees. I mean, really, come on. I mean, in the UK, you know, it get to 18 degrees C, and you just go, oh, fantastic, get out there. This is a positively hot day. Get those shorts on. You know? So, but generally speaking, you're right. I do think the weather does have an impact on people. And it's pretty miserable there a lot of the time. I mean, we have different names for rain. You know? Drizzle and just bad weather.
I don't know why, because it's a shitty day here today.
That's right.
I'm like, I just feel tired.
I must admit, when it was in July here, I got to a point, I was walking to work, and I was talking to myself, but being an extrovert, I was talking out loud to myself, and I was just going, oh, for goodness sake, I've had enough now, right? You can jolly well stop raining. And this person who was coming out of their house at the time just went, I agree with your sentiment. I went, oh, yeah, I said that outside of my head. Probably not the best thing to do, but never mind.
Well, I mean, at least they...
Yeah, they agreed. Yep.
And it has been a very wet winter here, I guess.
Yep.
Something I want to touch on too, it's just more stuff I keep thinking of on the spot.
Yeah,
just to throw them at you. Do you think the way that your mentality towards teaching of like back in the day, whatever it may be, you might have had a book or some questions or whatever and be like, learn this, you know, this is how it was done. Or have you changed that style and you're like, you've learned that if you make it a bit fun and a bit interactive, that children or students, blah, 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 teenagers will actively take it more in?
I think we can easily get into very, I don't know what they're called. I suppose that they're just a bit gimmicky ways of doing things. I like evidence-based research. I don't know why we have to call it evidence-based. In my mind, all research should be evidence-based. Yes. Therefore, it should be called research rather than an opinion piece. But I would say that I'm a science teacher. So I think I do like looking at good pedagogical practices, teaching practices. And I
thought of a dinosaur when you said that. I'm like,
that pedagogy. It's walking along in 5.3 million years ago, and that's not long enough ago. But never mind. I think so. You've got to think about what encourages kids. So I remember having this class that was of very low ability, and it was strange. In my very first year of teaching, they gave 6 new teachers out of the 10 classes they had this class because people found them difficult. And you go, that's crazy.
So what actually is that class?
This was like it was what's known as a pre-vocational class. Okay. It was called 10p.
Yeah, so this is like the
numbskulls? You won't get very far with 10p, will you? It's not a lot of money. Anyway, but I found what I did with those guys is I would do a practical with them every single week, and I used the opportunity to do, and they loved it because it was hands-on. They hated doing worksheets. And with the worksheets, I would do gaps in the worksheet with words at the top or join the lines so that they'd have the words on one side, the definitions on another side. And when a kid starts succeeding, even though that's a very much an old, in many ways, in inverted commas, old-fashioned way of teaching, when a kid starts succeeding, you see them light up. Right? So if you've got a kid who's not used to success in class, getting success because they're getting everything on a worksheet right, we're doing practicals every week, they're hands-on, and then I did a star chart. I had in my head, okay, these kids are actually 14, 15, but if I imagine that they're 9, 10, what would a 9 and 10-year-old want? And I used to do sticky stickers in their books, go, well done, and ticky charts, and they'd go, oh, and go into the classroom and look at the chart and go, oh, look, sir, like, my name's further up, like, man. And that was a terrible Geordie accent for any Newcastle people, I apologise. And they would get super excited by it. So it's easy to throw that out and just go, no, we need to move on to the new teaching styles that work.
Yep.
But these kids were getting success and their marks were improving. And, some of them would come back and say that those lessons, we really enjoyed them. You kept getting us to do. And I would use those practicals for my extended groups, but working out with the kids who were just like having fun with it and going, look, putting that sponge in there, the seeds will grow towards it. That's awesome. Let's do that with the higher ability groups, but just add in the deeper conceptual questions for them. Now I think there's a lot to we need to do this thing called wait time better. Teachers get anxious because we feel got to get through the curriculum, and it becomes a bit of a millstone around our neck. Got to get through the curriculum. Well, I can get through the curriculum in 2 hours. Doesn't mean the kid knows anything. So a common question I'll ask my staff and I'll ask prac teachers is, and they'll go, it was a great lesson. It's well structured. I did this. I go, how was your lesson? And I'm being a bit unfair on them. And then I'll say, okay, so how do you know that they learnt anything? And they suddenly, the jaw drops and they think, I haven't got a clue. So we know that little Johnny knows something because he answered your question. But what about the rest? So where we need to get better is at that kind of, okay, you think that. What do the others think? Now give an explanation. And that then gets everybody thinking, we're all going to potentially be asked. We all need to be on our game. And actually hearing what X person says helps what Y person says. And that can really help their understanding. And so for me, those practices are really good and everybody moves forward. Better students who are more able, teaching students who are less able, both improve. That's what evidence shows. So it's good, again, to get kids to interact and go, okay, what did you know? What do you understand? I know this. Okay, put it up on a Post-it note, put it on the wall. All right, if you don't understand that, go and talk to this kid. So all those kind of strategies, I don't want to bore you, but I think there's a lot of good strategies and practices that have come in. A lot of it is around cognitive thinking and styles, and just getting kids. Socratic questioning is a good one. Just getting kids to think through. So why do you think that? Because everyone wants someone else to answer, and if they've got it right, you think, great, I'm not going to look like a donut if I don't know the answer.
That's interesting. I'll just go back to my fucking... literally had a question in my head.
But I talked too long.
And I decided to just fucking get rid of it. This is what I wanted to fucking talk about. Sorry. We were talking about, like, off air, you'd say, about people say teachers have a lot of time off. Teachers are always wanting more money, or maybe it's more of a Victorian thing, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I just want to know where you stand on the point of, like, this is, I think I've said this on the podcast before, that I've got mates who are teachers, and that this is the issue, that they're all in different areas doing different things and teaching different things, so it probably is different. But some of them say, like, it's bullshit. I'm grading papers every night for 2 hours. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then other ones who are like, I love my job. Once I'm done, I'm done. But I mean, I think they're like PE teachers and this and that and doing... But I could be totally wrong.
Let's not stereotype people. Let's just assume that PE teachers just do not work hard.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Any PE teachers listening to this? You guys do not work hard. I can say that because I'm not a PE teacher, although a lot of my close friends are. So
PE teachers are scum. Is what
they obviously. But I mean, when they're preparing for a carnival, man, they are there until late at night trying to get all the paperwork. It's all the work behind the scenes. And then even, I mean, attitudes nowadays, and I don't like this. This is an entitlement attitude where it's like, you're putting this carnival on for me just to go for the PE teachers for the moment. And it's like, our kid will be in my class. I'm like, hang on, aren't you supposed to be at the basketball or something? They go, I just didn't want to go. And you're like, whoa, so what happens to the team then? It's like, and I see the headaches that the PE teachers have for those kind of things. So, and I think also there are ebbs and flows. So there are busy times and there are less busy times. But I was thinking about this question a little bit because I reckon I do about 40 to 50 hours a week, maybe more sometimes. It takes 20 plus hours if I'm writing a year 12 exam or a year 11 exam to write a decent exam paper.
Yeah, so that's your job.
Yeah, I'd do that. Yeah, but well, we all, my team will do that, but, and we spread that around. I think when I first arrived in WA, I did wonder why they called it a profession. Okay. So I was relief teaching, but I was working at a school, and you could see the tumbleweed going past. I was like, hang on, where's everyone gone? It's 2:40, 2:45, they've all gone. The bell, the siren or whatever has gone at 2:40. Where have they gone? It was like a ghost town. And I was still there, and it's like, I'm the relief teacher. I don't need to be here preparing. Okay. Where is it? Because my mindset was very much in the UK, you come in pretty much at this time, you leave, and you leave late. And I think the marking is always ongoing, preparation. I mean, I would say I have quite a good memory. I don't need to prepare too much, but I like to. I think if you're going to stay the top of what you do and you want to remain good and relevant, you need to, 1, keep researching, 2, keep reading, good practice, and 3, keep preparing, because I like to... I want to do a good job, because I think I owe it to the students in my care to do so. But you can leave and just go, you know what, I want a night off tonight. Yeah. I feel the pressure, and probably my wife will tell you it's to my detriment that I'm almost... if a kid emails me, I'll email back pretty quickly. Yeah. But they get into and obviously when I started teaching, you wouldn't have emails. Yeah. So nowadays you're kind of on 24/7. You don't have to respond. You probably have 48 hours. Yeah. But I find that I do. I probably need to be a bit better at that. But I think teachers work hard. I think nowadays I'd say more than when I arrived here in 2007. I think it's definitely more professional. I think WA is a well-paid state. I mean, people. I mean, we froze wages for a while. We probably need. It's in review right now. Yeah. But we are I'm not unhappy with how I'm paid. Don't say that though, because obviously that would be not good for us brokering for a new wage. No. But I'm not. Look, I do a job, and I don't think I'm poorly paid for what I do. Yeah.
Is the money different in the UK?
Yeah, you don't get paid as much as you do here. Yeah. I'm paid better here. That said, it's probably more expensive here than where I lived in the UK. But listening to what you... way of life. Yeah, I was listening to... I don't know if it was your podcast or someone else's, but they were saying London is really expensive. Was that... Maybe it wasn't your... You've lived in London though, haven't you? Yeah,
I lived in Surrey, but it was still pretty
Surrey,
expensive.
Actually, yeah. Whereabouts in Surrey were you?
Cranley.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
It's where I belong. The nice areas.
It's very nice.
So I'm in Freo now.
Yep.
What I don't know what you were about to say.
I was just the standard. So
you're saying London was expensive.
People think London's expensive. I lived in Newcastle, so but you can find your pubs that are not. I didn't think it was expensive. I think WA is expensive, and so the wages need to match that. I think Australia is expensive
for extracurricular stuff. Yeah. As in the way of like any type of little thing that you're gonna, you go to a certain place and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go look at this lighthouse that's over the water or whatever it is, and you're like, it's $25 to go do that, or I'm gonna go do this, or you're gonna go drinking, and it's like, my mates were just up in Broome on the weekend, and they said that was $16 a pint. Wow. And stuff like that, which is insane. Yeah. But you go to the UK and stuff, and it's like £4. So about what, $9 for a pint. In Perth, it's probably about 13 now, I guess. Yeah. So, and cigarettes and stuff like that. I don't smoke, but are crazy expensive in Australia, like $50 a packet. Yeah. Whereas in Canada, when I went over with one of my buddies, he was like, "Holy shit! The same cigarettes are $13." Yeah. So all that type of extra little things to make they're not non-essential, I should probably say. Yeah. They're really expensive, I guess. But I felt like the rent and stuff like that was still. If I lived in London and I looked at prices, I was going to live in Brighton myself actually, and the prices were on par with London and quite expensive for what you were getting, like a tiny little 1 bedroom, and you're like, it's probably I don't know, $1,000 Australian a month type thing. Whereas here,
the south of England believes it owes it to itself to give the image an impression that it's better than it is.
Yeah.
So the only way it can do that is by putting the prices up, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have high prices, it's like, why would, there must be something about living here. It's interesting. I went in Newcastle. There's a company called Procter & Gamble, and they make everything from Pringles to nappies.
Okay.
And washing powders and all sorts, right? And they make perfumes as well. And when we went round there, they were telling me that to make the perfume cost something like 2p, whatever, for a certain amount. Obviously, that's...
Yeah.
And they said they tried to sell their perfume for a cheaper price. The bottle was more expensive to make because they make it this...
Yeah.
And they said people start getting suspicious.
Okay.
So they had to make it...
cheap.
Yeah, it's too cheap, must be terrible. So they went, well, that's how that works. And I think London, it's like, it's expensive in London to buy a place. I mean, you'd say, mind you, there's places in Perth that are expensive to buy a place, right? Yeah. But I guess that's what it's like. I think there are some brilliantly beautiful places in the UK to live that would be, why wouldn't you go and live in the Yorkshire Dales? I mean, that's beautiful. Except you're quite far away from the comedy scene in Harrogate, maybe.
Yes. That is the issue, isn't it?
Although that's not cheap in Harrogate, but there you go.
The issue is it's where, I don't know, it's just whatever you can afford, but they're the little things that I've realised in Australia. The little things are expensive.
Yeah.
Just certain
they used to
things.
I think, I don't know how much it is for a liquor license here, but I know that there was someone who was looking at setting up a tapas bar. It's
crazy.
Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So they were going, we're going to move over to Brisbane and set it up there because the liquor license is so much cheaper. And it's like, fair enough, that's a shame. And given that we can grow everything in WA, why do we... But it's the mining money that originally set that ball in motion, I think.
But it's also the same thing as like, you go to a brewery and prices are the same as a restaurant and stuff. And you're like, I'm coming here to sit on this wooden seat because I want it to be cheaper. Yeah. Because you brew it here and it's coming straight from that tank that I can see that bearded fuck working on, and I want it in my glass, not for the price. Like if I wanted a big concrete structure and my drinks to be that price, I'd go into a nice building.
But you can't see that bearded fellow when you go to your local restaurant. Like you're paying for that.
It's me in the mirror.
I didn't know you brewed your own beer.
Me and the fucking spoon.
Yeah. But so you've got the opportunity, and he's going, you've come to see me making this stuff. You'll pay for that privilege, and you're like, okay, that's what I'm paying for.
Yeah, apparently.
Yep.
I don't know. It's very odd, but. I think you've answered most of my teaching questions. Okay. I wanted to jump into... You were supposed to be on the podcast about 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And you had a cardiac arrest.
I did, yeah.
What is I always say heart attack. That's my go-to one.
Yeah.
And then you were like cardiac arrest. And I was like,
it's
heart
a doctor
attack. And you were like cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
Do you know what the difference is?
I do.
Because my brother's tried to tell me multiple times. He's a paramedic, and it just goes through one ear. So as a seasoned teacher, I want to see how the 10 pence class, whatever you were, that's me.
Yeah, the 10p, well done. Yeah.
You get it into my brain.
Yeah, okay. Well, so we're going to struggle here, aren't we, Tait?
We are. We turn it off.
So basically a heart attack
Yep.
means that you've got arteries that are blocked.
Okay.
Right? So that means you're not getting the blood flow to the heart. A cardiac arrest is the electrical impulses that stimulate the heart. Okay, so one is blood and one is electrical impulses.
And you had the electrical.
So I had the electrical impulses. Yeah.
Why the hell my brother couldn't describe it exactly like that? And that's why you're a teacher. That's why you're the head of science.
Yeah, and that's it. It's only because of that one question that and he's probably gone, well, technically he's not right. Yeah. But a doctor actually corrected me because someone told me, when I first woke up, I said I had a heart attack. She said, you should call it a cardiac arrest. And I went, okay, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
So you had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah, and out of hospital cardiac arrest, only 8% of people, 8 to 10% of people survive. Why they can't just say 9% is anybody's business.
Yeah, true. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what, like you're a fit dude. Like you ran 5Ks this morning. That's a small run for you because you are on the mend.
Yeah.
You're not back at work yet, which I believe it is this week.
Yeah, this week. Yep, go back.
How long ago was it?
Yeah, it happened on the 28th into the 29th of August that the actual cardiac arrest occurred. Yeah.
So over the weekend.
It was over the weekend. Yeah. So it was on about 11:30 at night. I'm told I wasn't awake to know.
So did you have any? Did you feel ill? Did you have a headache? Did you anything that was?
The only thing I can say is I felt exhausted, and I thought, okay, I've got a year 12 exam to write, a year 12 test to mark. I've got this pedal pre thing which I was doing, and
what's
I thought.
The pedal?
So pedal pre is these recumbent bikes. You can look them up. They're awesome. Have a look on YouTube. Pedal pre Bustleton probably is the best thing to look up.
Is that the one where you lay down?
Yeah, you lay down. I get the kids to build them. It's fantastic, right? And I thought, okay, we're just going to do a race in Bunbury. I just got to get through that, and then I can start working towards the end of term.
Yeah.
And I think, and also I'd had a virus the week before, so I was pushing through. I was pushing hard to get everything done, and I knew I was busy, so I just felt exhausted. But I thought, you know what, she'll be right.
Yeah, just get
I've
through
learned that we'll get through.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with my dad just on this, that about 5:30 that day, and we're watching QI, and then I couldn't tell you what happened after that, other than what I've been told.
Okay.
So I collapsed, and then my wife did CPR. So I recommend learning CPR. It's good. And so obviously I can't divorce my wife ever because she can divorce me, but obviously
you owe her.
I owe her. And then
just your wife?
Yeah. Well, then Holly came in. My daughter came in and did CPR because Emma got tired. And then Luke was around, and he was opening the door for the ambos or for the paramedics.
You have to give him one job to do.
Yeah.
He opened the door. He's the real hero here.
He is the real hero. I mean, he did well, actually, because he was just trying to communicate, checking out that Em was all right. But
my brain
it was
stop.
I think probably the trauma for them has been greater since, because obviously I was not present, as it were.
Do you ever like cough or like make a sound and they're on edge?
Well,
are they overly now? Are they like, are you okay? Are you okay?
So I just had a text from the doctor saying you've been accepted for the sleep trial. Because
you've been training your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been. How can I sleep well?
Yeah.
Sleep apnea. I don't suffer from it too bad, but every now and then in the night I'll go, and then Emma now panics big time.
Okay.
So she brought it up when we had when we went to see the cardiologist, and he said, "Oh well, we'll just investigate that because you're breathing better. It's just making your heart rest more." Yeah. So that's the whole point.
I think I have sleep apnea now, just from being too fat.
Right. Okay.
I think that's just a side effect to getting too fat.
Yeah.
I just wake up like
so. Yeah, I mean, I was obviously very, very, very thin, and I became normal weight, and then obviously I got sleep apnea.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you get fat, that's what happens, right?
And you had a fucking, what do we say?
Cardiac arrest?
Cardiac arrest as well. And you're the fittest man in the world.
Yeah.
And like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
It shows me not to change my life.
Yeah.
Because if anything, the fit man gets it, and I'm like,
so encouraging.
Yeah.
Well, that is part of the funny thing, because I wanted to go to this group session on diet and exercise, and they deterred me. They said, "No, you can't go." I said, "Why?"
It's for fatties.
And they said, "Well, basically, you might discourage the other people there." I was like, "Okay, yep, I can see that."
I get it.
I get it. Yep.
Yeah, you're like, that is crazy. So obviously you survived. I'm not talking to a ghost.
Yep. That's why I always say it doesn't matter if I die on stage.
You always just shake people's hands so they know you're real.
Yeah, it must be shocking too, actually. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Do you feel like has your mindset changed in, and it really is an act. You know, there's always that time where like, oh, if I pulled out just then, I could have been hit by that truck. But yours was you would have been died. You would have like if.
Yeah. I think I feel grateful that I'm not dead. I don't think I'd have had anything? I don't think I'd have had that thought if I had died.
Yeah, true.
So, has it changed anything? I need to ensure that I don't fall back into the same trap of work where I
thought you can insure yourself, like you said. I need health insurance and life insurance.
Mate, I tell you what, I'm worth a lot more than I used to be. I've got it's probably worth $100,000 device in defibrillator.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah,
so that's in case your heart gets to a certain irregularity.
I think if it stops or does something, it'll punch me hard. I hear, then they say it's like being kicked by a horse, but I can't imagine that's great.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't want to be kicked by a horse.
No. I mean, no.
You'd die. So why would you want that?
Your heart's going to get kicked in the chest by a horse.
Yeah, that's it. It's just like that. And I'm like, how have you been kicked by a horse that you'd know that?
Yeah.
No, apparently not.
I want to know how they got the voltage just right to like. I think this is perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it's
because everyone has to be a little bit different.
I mean, it's science, right?
Yeah.
So.
And you're a man of science.
I'm a man of science, but this is physics, so I'll give this one to the physicists, and they'll have worked that out. So I guess it's more to do with if it stops, it will restart it. So there's and it's funny. I now notice defibrillators everywhere. They're in the station. I didn't notice. I know that's because of a historical thing. With I think did a child die, and I can't remember, but there's certainly been Yep, statistically that happens.
Everyone's dying all the time. But it always takes one person to be like, if there was a defib, we would have been able to save him. It's like, well, also, if there wasn't cars on that fucking road, that person would have got hit.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, you could wrap the world up in cotton wool, but that's probably not the best way to go.
It makes people weaker.
Yeah.
They were saying, I remember reading a thing about, so with obviously when COVID came out, everyone's putting that solution on their hands, alcohol rub type, whatever it's called, Purell.
Yeah.
And we have...
Sanitizer, maybe.
Yeah, sanitizer, that's the one.
Yeah.
I just went with the brand name.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you've got your hands have sort of the good bacteria and whatnot and blah, 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 and I suppose good germs or whatever it is. But we're getting rid of it. And people are getting sores and things on their hands. And they've got like, people were saying that have never got warts and stuff before. Yeah. They started to get warts because all that type of stuff. You
just got to wonder what they're doing, really, don't you?
I mean, touching frogs and stuff. Yeah,
that's it. Just those frogs. Yeah, that's the only thing they're touching.
Frogs.
Yeah.
Frogs' dicks.
Yeah. 1 in 5 STIs in Perth. Yeah.
Frog.
Yeah, frogs.
Big old
just frogs.
It's probably an acronym for something.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think, and they're saying that a lot of kids these days are, because we're very... Yeah, don't touch that. Don't do that. Allergies. Don't play it in the dust. Don't play it in the dirt.
More allergies. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. There's the truth is we don't know. That's the truth in terms of allergies. There's a lot of research because I remember when I started teaching. This is one of those interesting things.
Yeah.
Peanut allergies weren't really a thing. And you'd burn a peanut to see how much energy it had in it, right? Then you couldn't burn a peanut if you had a kid in the class who had an allergy to peanuts. Then you couldn't
say peanut.
Yeah.
You can't call a kid a peanut.
Yeah, you can't call a kid a peanut, and you shouldn't set fire to them.
Yeah.
So, and then next, you couldn't burn a peanut in the class because the parents would go mad.
Yeah.
If the next class coming in had someone who had an allergy, and then it got to the point then it's just like, maybe we should just not burn peanuts because even the smell during the course of the day was enough to set someone off. Really? So you can see the progression of the peanut allergy in that scenario. So
do peanuts burn really well?
Oh, they're awesome, mate. They're great. They give off a lot of heat. It's a great experiment.
They burn for a while as well?
Yeah, and you see all the fat dripping off them. It's a wonderful thing to burn. You'll have to do it sometime.
I'll do it tonight at the bloody ECC.
But as I say, just make sure you've checked it with the parents first.
No.
To make sure the parents are happy with you burning their peanut.
Yeah. It's dumb peanuts.
Those dumb peanuts.
You cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
So
caused by peanut allergy, I think.
You're thinking about, I just want to burn a peanut in my heart.
Thinking about peanuts and all those peanuts in my class. Unbelievable.
So obviously you haven't changed too much in the way of your mentality, stuff like that. Was there anything that you were like, you know what, life's short. I got a couple of things on my bucket list that I really would. I know you did stand up.
Yeah.
You've been doing that before. So obviously you've ticked that one off.
Yeah.
But did you go?
Well, that was a friend who ended up getting me to do stand up.
Yeah.
So
when you go bad, you ring him up and be
like, I always say it's his fault.
Yeah.
And if it ends up with my wife saying that you're out too often doing comedy, or doing,
Doug.
Let me rephrase it, doing shows at a comedy venue.
Yeah. Just there.
Yeah. Just for the funnier
hanging out with
people in the room. I think. so when I was 27, I can remember it was sat out in Newcastle Quay and someone said to me, what would be your ideal job? And I said, I'd love to do stand-up.
Really?
Yeah. But I knew how difficult it is to translate, because people are going, oh, you're really funny. It's like, it's difficult to translate what people see in everyday conversation as funny to the stage to a group of strangers. And then you've got to get a premise and you've got to come up with ideas, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, coming forward to the beginning of this year, my mate just said to me, Ant, you should give it a go. He said, I was at this show. He said, it was terrible and you're just so much funnier than these guys. And I went, okay. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give it a go. Yeah. And I just thought, I'll give it a go. And that's how it started, really. I just thought, yeah, I'm going to have to get over my 23-year fear of not doing it. Yeah. Because I think it's secretly you're saying, oh, what if I'm not funny? Yes. Well, I've discovered I'm not, so it's okay. So now once you get over that fear, you just keep going and just keep trying to find your voice. They talk about finding your voice. And I think I've found the style, but I still need to work on timing, et cetera, which is fine. I'm okay with that.
As you said, it's just a slow...
Yeah.
I suppose with a bit of a science background too, you can kind of like, all right, of do it as a bit of like an experiment of like, I've got this, I got that, all right, the fucking, whatever.
And I also know, I enjoy seeing other people progress. I mean, I think it's the thing about teaching. I enjoy seeing success of other people. So when I see someone, I like encouraging them. If I think they've done, I'll go up to them and go, come on, keep. And particularly if they get a bit down on themselves, because I notice, you probably notice this too, you probably notice it with yourself as well, that it's very easy to focus on the bits that didn't go well than the bits that went well. And look, in one sense, that's a good thing because it's sharp. You're trying to sharpen it to get it better. Mm-hmm. But on another thing, if you're beating yourself up on that, that's not helpful. So I guess, if I see someone, particularly if it's their first or they're like on the third or fourth gig, I just want to encourage them and go, yeah, keep going. And then there's some stuff I hear and I just think, that is really funny. That's really good observation. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like the really obvious stuff. And you go, man, how did we not see that?
You overlooked it. Yeah.
Like I think, was it Tait was doing one the other day. And he's just doing about the washing machine versus the dishwasher. I don't want to say too much of the joke because it's his joke. Yeah. It's funny. It's a great observation. And it just makes me laugh. I just think that is a very clever observation. Yeah. Yeah.
I know exactly the joke you're talking about. You also have a podcast. Or
I do.
You're still doing the podcast?
I don't do the podcast now. That again it's always a means to an end. So it's called That Human Bio Thing. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing, it's got over 25,000 downloads, nearly 26,000 downloads in 50 countries. Yeah. Which is ridiculous. Yeah. And it's basically human bio. Yep. And I started it because I had two students, both who were doing different things. Like one of them, I won't say what they did exactly because I don't want to identify them particularly. Yeah. But one was a sporting person and they was representing Australia. Yeah. The other one was representing Australia but in a different context. Yeah. And I thought, well, it's a bit unfair that they can't have the class lesson. And so I recorded it. Yeah. And that's how it started. And I did about 4 or 5 and I just went, oh, this is probably really boring. And then the whole class just went, no, keep doing it. I was like, man, I'm listening to myself. I've listened to very few of them because I just said, man, this is terrible. So I made an aim to keep them under half an hour and do maybe 20-minute ones. Yeah. And I did the whole syllabus. And then I did year 11. And so I've done the whole lot. Obviously, the bits of the syllabus change. And I always say, look, any errors are my own because I haven't got time to edit. But content's content. So it made me laugh when I started seeing people across the globe listening to this podcast that is very specifically aimed towards Western Australian students within the realm of human bio. But they listen to it. And it's always very funny because just before the WACE exam, the night before, I'll show you the graph afterwards, the graph goes nutso because clearly listening to 8 hours of podcasts, you're going to memorise all of that. And then you can at least blame me when you don't succeed. Yeah. So there we are. Well done you, I say. I take my hat off to those students.
Has anyone blamed you?
Oh, I mean, I always say it's your name on the paper, but of course, it's theirs. It's your fault. It's my success. That's how that works.
going back to that, how much do you think that parents and stuff dictate, like, what if a kid gets bad results because they're an idiot and they didn't apply themselves, and then their parents have the audacity to be like, you're a bad teacher, blah, 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 blah. What leg do you have to stand on?
Well, I think everyone has an opinion, and particularly with education. I mean, everyone's been to school, right?
Yeah.
So they know how teachers should teach because they've been to school. And in fact, teachers can be the worst or the best because they, if you've got a parent who's a teacher, that can be a bad thing or a really good thing because they either recognise and understand the challenges, or they can just be a nightmare and go, well, I would do this and I would do that. And you're like, oh, brilliant. I think at the end of the day...
You're a PE teacher, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Those PE teachers, not organising carnivals, they should, not doing anything. Yeah, terrible.
Lazy pricks.
Yeah. But I think the bottom line is that I can always get better. I think as a teacher, I should at least be teachable.
Yeah.
And so there's always something that someone says and I think, yeah, okay, you've got a point. I may not agree with your perspective, but all right, I try and see where they're coming from on it. And if they're protective of their kid, I find it hard when a kid's getting, they got 92% and the parents going, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
I feel for the kid then, because it's like, well, that's pretty good. But there's cultural things as well, cultural drivers. So certain, there's a comedian that we both know, he or she or they were telling me about their parents and the expectation that they should do medicine.
Oh yeah,
and they're like, well,
I know who you're talking about.
And they weren't very good at it, and suddenly it's like they're seen as a failure.
Yes,
they're not a failure. They're a very smart person. It's just not their thing.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, there you go. But I get it. Culturally, there's that drive, and certain societies have that. And you go, okay. Is it helpful? Well, I guess in many ways we're all victims of our parenthood or our growing up, our circumstances. So, and to what extent you can keep looking at that, you've got to take some personal responsibility at some points. But I see the pressure on kids, and it's hard. Sometimes you've got to try and remove that as best you can. Sometimes you are part of that pressure.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. My job is to teach and to the best of my ability, and I will chase things up. And if kids aren't doing their homework, I'll follow them up. That's my job.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that's it for us, mate.
Cool.
We're just under an hour. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks very much, Tait. It's been great. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
I think we've been chatting for about 2 hours before we
have
started doing it.
It was great.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was episode 34 with Ant Meczes. Thanks again for coming on. I have no idea what's in store for the next episode, so just if you enjoy it, keep listening and tell your friends, and if you hate it, shut up. Goodbye.